Well, the current Fianna Fáil leader Micheál Martin says the Assembly motion was confrontational and he's accused the DUP of attempting to rewrite history. Mr Martin joins us now live from Dublin. Good evening to you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us on the programme, Mr Martin.
Good evening. You're very welcome indeed.
There are clearly those, Gregory Campbell among them, who feel the Irish government was responsible, at the very least, for partly enabling the IRA to wage war on Northern Ireland. Is there a case to answer?
There's not a case to answer. I understand fully the anger, and it's still very raw, of many families who suffered at the hands of the provisional IRA in the most grievous way, losing loved ones. And you know, the IRA fundamentally were responsible for the murder of over 1,800 men, women and children. And my basic view on this is that the people who need to apologise, and apologise again and again, are the leaders of the provisional IRA, those who orchestrated, those who made the decisions in relation to the unnecessary murder and killing of so many people. And we all know that the Good Friday Agreement in many ways has represented the triumph of constitutional politics over those who espoused violence as a means to resolving the issues at the heart of the Northern Ireland situation.
But Sinn Féin at the moment, Micheál Martin, Sinn Féin could not be any clearer in its condemnation of dissident Republican violence.
Well, I wouldn't quite agree with you on that. I mean, I think the Sinn Féin have a problem in terms of their credibility in attacking the activities of the real IRA and the dissident Republicans, as they're so called. And the fundamental problem is, we saw it again this week. I mean, when I was travelling up to the funeral of David Black, prison officer, again, another appalling crime, I listened with incredulity, really, of the campaign that Sinn Féin mounted outside PSNI headquarters against the arrest of Pádraig Wilson in relation to the murder of the McCartney murder. Now, this is at the very same time that PSNI are looking for people to cooperate with them in terms of finding the killers of prison officer David Black. So how can you, on the one hand, condemn that activity, ask people to cooperate with the PSNI, when on the very same day and on the other side, you're campaigning outside PSNI headquarters and accusing, and more or less essentially saying, despite the fact that you're a party of government, you're saying you actually decide who the PSNI should arrest or should not arrest. I find that staggering. I find it incredible, and it undermines that fundamental point that you made in terms of Sinn Féin's credibility in really having a strong hand in undermining and in condemning the work of the dissident Republicans.
Okay, well, we can't talk about the Pádraig Wilson case in any great detail because it's obviously a live case. So that's
I'm not talking about the case. I'm talking about the protests.
No, I understand that. But as a political party, does Sinn Féin not have the right, on the one hand, to condemn the murder of David Black, and on the other hand, to protest at the arrest of one of its members, if that's what it wants to do?
It doesn't actually. It's a member now of the executive. It's part of the government of Northern Ireland. I mean, we would find it extraordinary for any justice spokesperson, or indeed any minister for justice, or any leading member of a political party who's in government, to actually protest against its own police, against the police that you underpin. That's the central part of society that's there to protect the citizen, uphold law and order. It's just an extraordinary situation to behold, really. And you don't have that luxury if you're in government. Yeah. And you cannot, if you are in government, undermine your own police force.
At the same time, you're walking a very different line here, because you would not want to be seen, would you, in any way undermining Sinn Féin for clearly criticising the individuals who were responsible for the murder of David Black. It was a good thing, was it not? Well, that Martin McGuinness came out and stood alongside Peter Robinson and called the people who were responsible idiots.
Absolutely. I accept that, and I welcome that. But it's the other actions that Sinn Féin have engaged in that undermine that very act.
Okay.
That's the point. You can't have it both ways, is what I'm saying. And I feel that its actions in relation to the picketing of PSNI headquarters undermines the central message that Martin McGuinness was giving, that people should cooperate with the PSNI.
Okay, but isn't it also
should have faith and trust in the PSNI? Because remember, we all, if you like, invested heavily in what was a new dispensation in policing. One of the great, I think, legacies of the Good Friday Agreement has been what has occurred in policing. That is our perspective on it.
Okay, but couldn't I also
who look in from outside, and international people have come to look at that, reforms and the pattern reforms which were quite groundbreaking and actually act as a model for other areas of conflict in terms of how you develop modern police forces that can respond.
Okay, couldn't I just take one of those points that you made there where you say that Sinn Féin can't have it both ways and suggest to you that the Irish government can't have it both ways? It can't be condemning violence at the moment without at least facing up to the possibility that it was in some way responsible for some of the violence that happened 40 years ago. Do you think that there is any time that will come when the Irish authorities will say, look, we were wrong in doing this, that and the other, and we're sorry that it happened?
Well, first of all, I mean, I had an uncle in the Garda Síochána, quite senior officer in the Garda Síochána in the early 70s. And I know at first hand the enormous challenges the Garda Síochána faced at that time in combating the activities of the Provisional IRA, and indeed our Army and Defence Forces as well. And I would reject any suggestion of collusion between the Gardaí and the Army, for example, as has been suggested in that debate and elsewhere by others at that time. They faced many challenges, indeed some lost their lives at the hands of the Provisional IRA, up to very recent times. And so you can understand maybe how repulsive we find the accusation and the assertion that somehow we are responsible or were responsible for the activities of the Provisional IRA. Now, there's a complete analysis has been undertaken in terms of the origins of the crisis in the late 60s, early 70s, and in terms of what transpired there. But I don't for a moment accept that the Irish government was in any way responsible for the birth or emergence of the Provisional IRA in Northern Ireland, and certainly not responsible for the heinous crimes that they were involved in, one of which, of course, people and the victims and some families had to remember today the 25th anniversary of the horrendous crime at Enniskillen. And so I think, you know, we would feel quite strongly about that, and I think it's important that I would put that on the record and articulate that position that we have on that issue.
Gerry Adams, of course, the Sinn Féin president, who's now a TD for Louth in the Dáil, has said that this spat between his party and your party is more to do with electoral politics in the south than with any concern you have with what's happening in the north.
I joined Fianna Fáil actually as a young student in the 1980s, principally because of my interest in and concern about Northern Ireland and about the island of Ireland, and my desire that we should live in harmony and peace and in unity ultimately. So this has nothing to do with the present situation, political situation. I've had a lifelong interest in Northern Ireland, and indeed as a minister, government minister, I had a deep interaction with the North, and particularly as Minister for Foreign Affairs was involved in detailed negotiations.
Yes, but the point that he's making with respect is that at the moment Sinn Féin is a real challenge to you domestically as far as politics is concerned on the ground in the Republic, and that's why you won't pass by an opportunity to have a go at Sinn Féin.
Mark, there is no electoral benefit whatsoever from me making statements about the North in the Republic. That's the reality of that. People might not like that, but the reality is the economic and social and other issues are predominant here. Micheál Martin making concerned speeches about Northern Ireland isn't going to change the electoral dynamic in the Republic one whit. But that's not the point as far as I'm concerned. I feel as a Republican, I have a responsibility. I don't want to see politics in the North failing the people of the North. I believe that the peace process, the Good Friday Agreement, was more than just about the absence of violence. It was about a strong economic and social dividend for the people of Northern Ireland. It hurts me to see that 46% of children born in West Belfast or in West Belfast are in poverty, and that Northern Ireland still has the highest index of poverty, of child poverty in these islands, the highest level of economic inactivity, the highest level of youth unemployment. That's politics failing people, and therefore as a Republican I feel an obligation and a responsibility to contribute to that debate and make my points in relation to that debate.
Can I just ask
I'm not overly bothered about the situation in the Republic with which Sinn Féin will deal with that in the Republic, and will deal with it quite robustly and competently as well.
Okay, can I ask you just one final question on the matter of Sean Quinn? You will understand that there are a lot of people in this jurisdiction who take a very keen interest in Sean Quinn and wonder whether or not the Dublin High Court was right to sentence Mr Quinn to 9 weeks in jail for contempt of court. Do you think the High Court got it right? Should he be behind bars tonight?
I don't pass judgment on the courts. I uphold the decisions of the courts. We have a separation of powers in the Republic which we adhere to very, very rigidly. The political system and the parliamentarians do not interfere with, do not attempt to undermine the judgments of the court, and we honour and respect the independence that our judiciary have and enjoy and have enjoyed since the foundation of the state, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah, but
the situation in relation to Sean Quinn,
if
I may make a point, I think it's very tragic. It's a sad situation. A person who created thousands of jobs on this island, both sides of the border, made a very distinguished contribution, but unfortunately I think made errors as well, and made errors of judgment, as he himself has admitted, both in the context of the gamble in relation to Anglo Bank, but also in terms of subsequent behaviour which the courts have now adjudicated on.